We're looking specifically in this webinar at how to access the green pound, what that means, and how we can do work with customers who are interested in spending their money on green and sustainable products, but do it with integrity. So there's a lot of conversations out there about things like greenwash. Even the government is now legislating against greenwash. So we need to be mindful of walking the walk as well as talking the talk. I'm Rachel. I'm the founder of OurPledge. Our mission is to make sustainability simple by doing work like this webinar and also supporting businesses to raise funds and to do market research with their clients. And my co-host today is Noelia Rambal from GoodF. And Noelia and I have known each other for some time. We both run sustainable businesses in the borough. We're both based in Waltham Forest. So I can't even remember when I met you, Noelia. You just have been in my business life since I founded OurPledge in 2019. So it's really nice. Yeah, it's really nice to be doing a webinar together. And this is not the only project that we have that we're collaborating on. So that's exciting for us. So we'll be co-hosting this morning. So I think first things first, I'll share my screen. Lovely. Okay, so that's where we are this morning, where we are now. Accessing the green pound with integrity with OurPledge and GoodF. So we're going to do welcome and introductions, and then I need to move my Zoom bar. Then we're going to look at some consumer trends around sustainability, talk about accessing the green pound with integrity, look at measurable impact, transparency, telling the story. Noelia and I are going to we'll have some breakout rooms, and Noelia and I are going to have a bit of a chat about some of the things that we've learned and we've observed in terms of consumer trends and habits and our own sort of experiences to date. So that's the outline for this morning. I'm looking to finish 11:30, depending on how much of a conversation there is to be had, particularly in the breakout rooms. So first of all, it would be very, very useful for us to understand who's in the room, just to meet you all and hear name and what your business is. Noe, is that what we want to ask?
Yeah, your name, what your business does, and if you can just put your camera on for a little bit, so at least we can see a face to that.
Yeah, so I don't know if I should nominate someone to start.
Well, do we start with the manual system?
Yeah.
His face.
Great stuff.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Squire, and my business is called FanRide. And what we do is we are a digital marketplace for ride sharing for sports fans that travel up and down the country.
Fantastic. Nice to see you. Harriet, I can see you've put your camera on. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Hi, I'm Harriet, and I have a slow fashion brand called Saywood, which is all focused on wardrobe staples elevated with colour and detail. So having a bit of fun with timelessness, and everything is ethically made in East London and also in Romania from responsible fabrics and trims.
Thank you so much. And I know that we're also collaborating with Harriet because you're going to be running a workshop for us at our upcoming Forest Fest. So
Yeah,
good to see you here. And Suprina, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Did you want to tell us about you? Say hello. Hello. Oh, you're on mute.
Of course. Hello. Hi, everyone. So yeah, my name's Sabrina. I have a skincare business. So it's called MSA Skincare. It's a natural, organic, plastic-free one. So we go with sustainability and eco-friendly, and it's vegan-friendly as well.
Fantastic. I need to look you up. And Jess, Tolly, do you want to just say a quick hello as well?
Hey everyone, I'm Jess. I'm the marketing assistant for OurPledge.
So I'm going to hand over to Noe now. I can't see you on my screen. One sec. And I will be the I'm going to say the chauffeur. I'll be the driver of the
clicker.
The clicker. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Rachel. That's fantastic. Yeah, so I suppose I can introduce myself to Noelia Rambo. I'm the founder and CEO of GoodF. Harriet is listed with us in the platform. Harriet, nice to see you here. And as Rachel said, for a while we have been in each other's radar, working in the borough and outside the borough for sustainability courses. So so GoodF is a tech for good platform that aggregates sustainable brands. And can I have the next slide, please? And the reason why I did this after many years driving a marketing career in the corporate side is because I really felt like the global economic growth that we have lived in the last century, if not more, has been extremely expensive in terms of degradation of natural capital, climate change, and violation of human rights. And this is probably the same motivations that each of you are here for or have started your own sustainable brands and businesses for. Next, please. Oops, not that way. But luckily, and the main reason why we wanted to talk about how to access the green pound is because consumers are waking up, and we know it. There is stats that say 73% of people globally want to reduce their impact in the environment. 47% of them say changing their to a green lifestyle is actually a priority. So people have it very top of mind, and because it has been growing massively in the last few years, there is a massive opportunity here for everyone like us. Next, please. Also, those consumers are acting. They don't only not only just worry about it, they're actually searching for it more on Google. More than 200% growth in searches for sustainable products in the last years. And 1 in 3 people in the UK actually have said they have stopped consuming a brand or a product or a service based on some ethical or sustainability concerns. So there is clear action here towards that sustainable lifestyle. Next, please. But still, consuming responsibly is very hard work. Like if you think about it, you search for something on Google and very rarely you get right results. Actually, Amazon has been tricking the system. So whatever you go and say, I don't know, sustainable toothbrush, then you get like sustainable toothbrush in Amazon because they just like take your own search query and like display that at the top. And they don't have many things, but anyway, they just want that click, right? So they pay a lot for that click too. And very small players like us, like other brands that we know that they're doing really well, they might struggle to get those first places because people with big pockets get it first. So obviously there is a lot of information out there, blogs, etc. A lot of people trying to do a good thing. But if you're a busy person trying to like change your lifestyle, the last thing you want to do is read hours and hours of like articles to make a decision on a toothbrush, for example, right? There is and then on top of that, some greenwashing. So a lot of people saying they're doing things that they are not doing, amplifying and like inventing ways in which they are supposed to be sustainable. And then there is, for the consumer, no way to really compare between products. So if you really wanted something sustainable, you end up going for like the first thing that was referred for you. Like someone might have told you the name of a brand, you might have read a blog that had 1 or 2 suggestions, and that's it. So there is nowhere where people can actually compare. There is a lack of variety, and then convenience. Normally they will take longer to dispatch because they're made slowly for the right reasons, right? But for the common denominator consumer, those are things that are quite frustrating and that put sustainable consumption in like disadvantage. Then there's premium prices on all of that. And at the end of the day, it just becomes a really time-consuming and daunting process. Next, please. So that creates a really big gap between the intention that those consumers have and actually what they get to do. So only 23% of people say they have adopted any major changes to their lifestyle, and 22% of people can actually name a brand that are doing a good thing. And again, that might even be like greenwashing, because the brand that they might be thinking about might not even be doing the right thing, because those are the ones that get to like shout about things they're doing, and it might be all fake. So compared to the 73% of people, this is such a small percentage, right? And apparently what puts them on is off from that consumption and from like getting more out there is or the blockers they have are, first of all, price. It tends to be a bit more expensive to consume sustainably for the right reasons most of the time. Then there is lack of support. People do feel like governments, borrowers, charities, businesses all should be doing more to get them and to lead them into a more sustainable lifestyle. And the third one is they just don't know where to start. They literally don't know. So next. All of this creates like a huge market for brands like us, which is great news. So 39% of people in the UK say that increasing ranges in sustainable products. So if there were more options, they would adopt a more sustainable lifestyle more easily. And also 1 in 3 are willing to pay more for those products. So we have seen it's a blocker, but also there's a huge amount of people that actually are ready and willing to pay more for it. And the key areas that they would pay more for it, that they would like to see more availability of sustainable products, are like things like packaging, waste reduction, human rights and fair trade, animal welfare, and biodiversity. So this is great news for us. Next. So GoodF, which is my tool, is trying to basically close that gap and on one side help brands that are sustainable in direct to consumer brands to get seen and get in front of people. And for the consumer side, it's a place where people can come and search, find, and compare ethical alternatives to everything in one place, and basically make it easy that purchase decision. Next, please. So quickly about our impact. So far, and this was my report for 2020, so I had to like paste on top the figures, the most recent figures. But basically, we work on the sustainability development goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. And so far, we have more than 650 brands listed on our platform. Those are all sustainable and ethical brands. And more than 20,000 people have found an ethical brand through our platform since we launched at the end of 2019. More than 120 brands have done paid partnerships with us. So we have like very strong partnerships with a lot of brands locally in the UK. And we have created a bunch of, specifically 7 campaigns for positive impact awareness, like less consumption, less plastic, women's rights, and gender pay gap, etc. We cover both things, environmental and also social. Next, please. Great. So I think that was kind of the first part, talking more about the stats and consumer trends that hopefully gave you like a good idea of where the consumer mind is right now, and actually inspire you to keep doing what you're doing, because it's a great market space that we are all working on. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Noe. Did anyone have any questions before we move on at all? No. If you do have questions as we go through, please do put them in the chat, or as a small group, you can also unmute and we can come to them as they come up. So yeah, thank you so much for that insight, Noe. It's it's very familiar, some of those stats. When we were preparing this, I thought, oh, this is good. We're saying the same things. So we didn't compare notes so much before we decided to do this session together. So it's like, it makes a lot of sense. So I will move on to this section. So again, I just wanted to do a quick introduction to myself and to OurPledge, and talk about why this is so central to the existence of the business, really. So I'm a business owner myself. I'm a business owner based in Waltham Forest, much like you all. I wasn't, I mean, my background is in film. I came from running film festivals and running events in the film industry, and then really working with filmmakers who were trying to make film their business. So I have a lot of background in growing film companies and working with filmmakers from their first feature onwards. So I have that background, and it was really only about 3 or 4 years ago that I realised that when I went home in the evenings, I wasn't really watching any films. I was just reading about the climate crisis and what was happening in the world, and that I was really putting my energy into the wrong space. So I did some training, and I started to move my my experience and my interest into this sector, the sustainability sector. I became a carbon ambassador, which means I've taken a course in carbon literacy and understanding carbon reduction. I'm a circular economy practitioner through the Earth Academy. I'm also a bioleadership fellow, which means I spent 9 months in a course that looked at working as a business leader with nature at the heart of what we do. And I think the main thing that I suppose was the driver behind setting up OurPledge was that I'm still an activist now, but I was very much an activist for a long time, and I realised that I was speaking into an echo chamber a lot of the time. I was speaking just to other activists, and that what I thought was reasonable in that context perhaps didn't really translate to the majority of people I worked with or that I knew. And so I started thinking before setting up OurPledge, like, I really want to have these conversations. I want to have them in a good and positive way. I want to talk to people about doing something for and about the climate crisis in a way that made people feel safe and empowered and positive and proactive. And so I would still say I am an activist now, but I felt that I could do more by moving my sort of activism into a business. So what I started to do when I joined Extinction Rebellion, and I realised that there's so much good being done by XR, but really that conversation had quite often was reaching a point where it wasn't landing with people, and that and so I kind of went back to my roots. I was like, well, hang on, what else am I? I'm an activist, but I'm also, why am I an activist? It's because I'm a nature lover. I love the earth. And so I kind of took that step back to think about why I was doing what I was doing and what was it all for, and really tried to reconnect with that part of my motivation, the sort of, I guess, like the love part. And then I also realized that, I'm a hypocrite, and also I really like shopping. Like, I have no, I have to, accept that, the habits and ways that we live sometimes are really fun, and it's part of who many of us are. All of us, we all have to shop. None of us are like self-sufficient farmers, I'm assuming. So I started really kind of reframing my my thoughts in this space around like rational optimism. So like, how can I be hopeful in the face of the climate crisis in a really rational way, and like work within the systems that are already that we're already within. So like really trying to be a realist about it, and that's where OurPledge was kind of born. So I thought a lot about technology and how I use technology. I find technology a really useful tool, and like GoodF is exactly an example of technology working really well for me. Like, I need to use, I need sustainable dental floss. I look on GoodF, or I need, to know about a sustainable clothing brand. I can look on GoodF and find Harriet's studio. So, technology is so helpful, and I use apps to track what I'm, to track plastic use, or to work out my carbon footprint, all those things. I also hugely believe in community, the power of community and collaboration, and that's really at the heart of what OurPledge does. And I really like thinking about local economic health. I think we talk a lot about economic growth, but actually we don't all have to grow all the time. In fact, we can't grow. Like, that would just be impossible. We live in a finite planet. So thinking about what we can do locally. And I think also because climate change is so overwhelming, if you think about it on a global scale, it's the only real way to make an impact is to kind of pull your focus back into the local and think about what you can do here and now that might create ripple effects that then, affect somebody in the next community over who's going to do something for their community. And if that principle continues, then everyone ends up doing things locally for good. So, and also this came out of some work we did recently, but our mission really is to say that, it should be possible for everyone to shop and eat and work and socialize without damaging their bodies or the planet. And that's really hard. So it's almost like saying that should be almost like a right, a human right, to not be forced to eat or buy products that are so damaging to us and to the planet. So so I set up OurPledge. What do we do? So the core of the business originally was this fundraising platform that still exists, which I'll talk a bit more about as well, which is focusing around a concept of pledge to buy, pledge to supply. I'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. But we also do things like market research and customer trend analysis for our clients, so we can see what the customers for individual businesses are really interested in and what they might like that business to stock. We do event management. We're running Forest Fest, as I mentioned already, and we do training like this. I also, through my film background, have experience in visualization, which is actually a tool just to kind of create almost three-dimensional, very basic three-dimensional images of what the future might look like for a space. So imagining a future high street, for example. And we do the training that we're doing through Elevate. So I wanted to focus on the Pledge to Buy platform, because this really was about harnessing the power of the green pound. So Pledge to Buy, Pledge to Supply platform. So this is really kind of focused in on bringing everyday plastic-free alternatives to local shops, cafes and restaurants. And we do that through basically reaching out to customers for businesses. And I'll talk later about one specific example as well, of a convenience store that said we'd like to stock more sustainable goods, but we don't know if our customers are going to want to buy them. So we did a bit of market research. We asked the customer base, would you be interested in buying plastic-free refills? And the customer said, yes, we would. But that's kind of not good enough. Like Larry said, people saying that they want to do something, there's a gap between people saying that they want to do something and them actually doing it. So rather than taking a risk on the word of customers that they would buy something if it was there, we created a platform that basically said, okay, if you would buy it, why don't you buy it now? Pay for it now, and then that will give the shop the cash flow to go and buy that product and set up the shop in a different way without the risk that you might not ever show up to come and purchase it if we just left it at this sort of slightly woolly bit of market research. So we created a platform very much modelled on crowdfunding to say, okay, you're saying you would buy it, put your money where your mouth is, pledge to buy that product, put the money in a holding pen in a pot that we manage, and also it assumes that, okay, for one customer, it's not going to be worth it for the business to make a change to a different product line. But if enough consumers say at once that they would like that product to be on the shelves of this shop, then that makes a good business case. And so we can create a target for that particular campaign, we would call it, and say, right, once we've reached this amount of spend through pre-sale vouchers, we know that there's a appetite for this product. We know that the money's there. The small business, again, because none of the people we work with are sort of Amazon scale, a small business can actually use that money to go buy the product, get the shop fitted out if they need to put some refill bins in, and then open their doors to those customers and say, right, come and collect your products, use your vouchers. So you end up exchanging the voucher that you bought in the first place for the product. So this kind of de-risks and accelerates sustainable shopping for businesses and shoppers alike. So both sides sort of dancing around going, oh, I don't know, I'd like it, but it's not, it becomes like a done deal. So we're like on a mission to disrupt these environmentally damaging consumer patterns of supply and demand, and to kind of switch that by putting power back into the hands of consumers. So so that's what we do. So it's kind of all about this target market for the green pound, which I call Blue Planeteers. So there's a really quite widespread group of people. So this is kind of the and in a minute I refer to them as like inactivists. So they're like people who want to do something, but they don't know what to do. So there's a huge sort of majority of people in a way, I think, who've seen Blue Planet, right? That's a big, they kind of trust David Attenborough. They've seen Blue Planet and they go, God, yeah, there is an issue. This climate change is happening. I would love to do something about it. But as Noé said, I don't know what to do. So they don't do anything. Another reality is that like many people, even though they have this sort of awareness, are like, oh, when I found about OurPledge, one of the motivating factors was the, oh, I wish I could, but sort of factor, which is like, oh, I'd love to do something about it, but I'm so busy. Or look, it's so easy for me to pop to this shop on the way home, and I just, because of and all of the things are really, really valid. Like, of course, it is. We live crazy lives, If you've got a routine that works for you, it's quite hard to disrupt that routine. So you want to kind of have the change brought to you, right? I think what's really interesting as well, for most people, when we think about what we can do for the planet, it really is focused on what do we buy and where do we buy it. And I think that's because we're like super familiar with transactional and purchase-based actions. So we just, it's just an easy way to make a difference. It's like, oh, I'll buy something different, and then then I've done my bit. And so, so that's like a really easy space to kind of talk to people about what they can do. You're not asking them to kind of go and glue themselves to a building or, chain themselves to a bridge or something. You're just asking them to switch what they buy. And one of the things I really observe as well is that people like to see the impact that their decisions have made. I really remember having a chat with one of my friends, and she was like, oh, I wish I could, but, and she was like, well, is it actually going to make a difference if I don't drink this Coke or something? What I can't, like, the impact was so far away. And so bringing that closer, again, coming back to the local, definitely feels like something that kind of works for people. I'm going to try and change the slide. I hope it doesn't. Right, well done. Okay. So what I really found was that, I discovered that we've got to work within the system, or this is my kind of, my approach. I kind of wish the system wasn't the way it is, but it is, and it's very, very big. So, and actually, things are happening at the moment that are kind of rippling out in all ways to show that the system doesn't really work. But it is still there. So I talked about this earlier, but this kind of concept of like inactivists are actually a really powerful force. And just to reiterate again what Noah was saying earlier, I think my stats are from a different report, but they measure up. So 6 in 10 consumers are willing to change their shopping habits to reduce environmental impact. And I think that even changed throughout the pandemic as well. Although I'm not sure, coming out of the pandemic, there's a little like kind of fuzziness around what people are going to do now. Yeah. And then also like 88% of small businesses, small and medium sized businesses want to be more sustainable, but 70% of them struggle to act. So they're like they're in that position of being like, I want to do something, but like they're a bit worried about aggrieving their customers. They want to make sure that they are doing what, they're not going to alienate their customer base. So they need that support from their customers to kind of motivate them into action. And what's really interesting about this is that the figures kind of imply that this gap, this inaction gap, represents a potential untapped opportunity of £190 billion. So there's like a huge market potential for just making some connections and joining the dots and offering people these sustainable products that they want in the places where they can get them. So, you know, I put this Economics with Justice as a title because I did a course called Economics with Justice, which sounds so ridiculously like smug. So I'm doing economics, but, you know, like it's with justice. It's like, just feels a bit, so I used to laugh at myself for doing that. But it was a really useful course because it was about understanding the context, accepting my own imperfections, being like, I don't have to be, you know, a totally sort of hair shirt wearing activist. You know, I also like shopping and I am part of the problem. And also this concept of like attacking the problem and not the person. So making people feel that it's not their fault or that they're not a bad person for not shopping sustainably, you know, like, but that it's actually a big issue that's out of our hands. And understanding the power of many small acts. And then the other thing I just wanted to come back to is about this concept of like a safe space for people to kind of explore. And that in a funny way, I've come to realize that shops, retailers, product makers are actually quite safe spaces. So when you pop into a convenience store on the way home, or you know, just a small local shop that you like, and you know the people behind their counter, and or you know the makers of the product that you're buying, or you can see the stories. And this we're going to go into this a bit as well in terms of this session about telling the story, being real, being a face. People really enjoy that and respect it, and actually it kind of gives some room for people to go, oh, do you know, I don't quite understand what's the difference between like climate change and like plastic pollution. Are they connected? And you suddenly find that you're creating places where people can sort of talk about these questions, ask these questions. So you know, seeing consumerism shops and these kind of things as a place where you can actually learn, I think is really, really powerful. So yeah, back over to you, Noe.
Great, thank you. Actually, really good kind of mention of like the system and what the system is, and the impact of an individual. I think in a Good Find, we kind of tend to think like by doing small steps, you are helping change the system. Like systemic change takes not only a long time, but like a lot of effort and a lot of parties. And ultimately it's about policies, and consumers not very often can actually get involved in, or need to, or want to get involved in policy and government level stuff. But their purchasing behavior will help make the business case, the policy case, to change the system. So I totally kind of, yeah, we promote a lot like the power of the individual and their purchases for good. But yeah, I wanted to kind of introduce kind of the thought and the joke about like 3 types of businesses that might be out there. You might be a sustainable business, which means you're not perfect. It just means you're on a journey to do things well, and to learn about it, and to be transparent about it. It might be that your business is not yet, you're just trying to learn and then see where you can implement it. Or your business not yet, but it's lying about it. So that's where greenwashing kind of space is. And the reason why I wanted to kind of split them like that is because you really want to avoid to be in that third bucket. If you're not there yet, just don't say anything, because transparency is very important for this and for the relationship with customers, etc. Next, please. So obviously, many of you here, and I just, wasn't aware how many of you were going to come from sustainable businesses versus not at all background in sustainable businesses. So I brought kind of the 2 most famous sustainability frameworks in terms of businesses and initiatives. And you I think for what each of you said you do, you probably are aware of this very quickly. ESG actually came from the world of finance, and how they actually, when they started thinking about impact investment and green investment, they actually came up with this framework to say these are the 3 areas that we're going to look at and inspect in order to make our investment. And the 3 areas are environmental, social, and governance. This is also the kind of framework that GoodF uses at the moment. So we ask questions around those 3 areas to make sure that the brands that want to list with us don't have any red flags in any of them. We're not certification, so we're not going to be like B Corp taking you for a year through these, but they are the same 3 areas that probably B Corp will take you through in a lot more detail, and ask you for reports and justifications, etc. The other very famous and common right now is the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, from the UN, and there are 17 of them. Normally, your business will be touching in a couple of them at the same time, really, at least. We like to say that we actually cover all of them in one way or another, because the brands that we support cover and support so many different areas. So it's a great framework just to know what's your main one. So in our case of GoodF is number 12, is all about responsible consumption and production, and that basically is the one that kind of encapsulates everything else. Every business that is supporting any of the 17 goals then might be doing something for supporting the consumption and the responsible consumption and production. Right, next. So Harvard has a small course called Sustainable Business Models, and I just wanted to kind of bring here a little, again, like thinking about, okay, I want to do something, and it might be, again, something that each of you already did, and maybe you're thinking about launching a new line, or how are you going to sustain your business? It's a question I do myself every day. Like, it's so hard to run a sustainable business. Do you want to be fair to your clients and customers? Do you want to be transparent? You want to support whatever cost you're supporting, but at the same time, you need to run a business, and you need to, like, make money so it can sustain itself, right? So the models, the main 4 models that Harvard kind of proposes are these. You can cut costs. For example, there are examples on where if you are going to do deodorant, let's say, just to put the example of Wild or any other, these new age deodorants, in the way that you create a very sustainable product, for example, using better ingredients and materials, etc., and then you sell it, the case, just once, you are reducing the cost of the production of each of your products. Therefore, you can still price that product quite well and make a margin, not only from the pricing being right for the market, but then the delta that there is between what your product would cost with the same packaging every time, and having to drop that. So at the moment, I'm subscribed to that, and I get every 3 months a box with 3 little things. And there is cardboard and this paste inside a compostable thing. Is that cheap to make? I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's certainly more affordable for this business to ship me every 3 months something that is made out of cardboard than that it is to do a whole production line that involves taking that product and putting it in plastic things 1,000,000 times, right? So can you think around what part of this product design can I actually drop or change to actually save me costs and therefore be more profitable? Raising prices, obviously, that's probably what a lot of us start doing it, because we think, okay, there is some people that are prepared to pay more. I'm going to start here, and I might not be in the position to change the design of this product, but I'm just going to charge a little bit more in a premium because my ingredients are a little bit more expensive, because I'm targeting a different audience, etc. And that's totally fine, but you need to be aware that this will not work with everyone. You have a very specific target audience. They're prepared to pay more for your products than all the products that they can get from the supermarket. obviously increasing market share. So other parts of the population that are using this product or they could use this product, but they haven't been tapped. So in here, I can think about maybe it's, I don't know, you're running a restaurant, and maybe you are, I don't know, thinking about delivery, which is kind of also the next one side about new business model altogether. But can you reach other people that are not coming to you? And that might be in many ways. Can you deliver what you're doing? Or can you actually try and see, okay, what's the demographic closest to mine that might be interested in this too? If you're doing, I don't know, same with the restaurant, would your people that come into the restaurant like some recipe books? And then you kind of can go that way. Or would they like to come to learn how to cook? And then it's classes, you know, it kind of goes hand in hand a little bit. Increasing market share normally comes with you coming up with a new idea to increase the amount of people that might be interested in your product. And then obviously completely new business. So you might be running a business that inherently not very sustainable, but you really cannot find any solution about redesigning it, or about going around, or about expanding the service, or about changing materials. It might be something really traditional that you don't find a way of doing that, but can you create a new one that responds to that? So, and in the way, obviously, you can then create some impact by employing a vulnerable group, etc., which we're going to talk about it in a minute. I just wanted to touch on those just as a way of inspiring people to think about their business differently and how to apply sustainable models within that. Next, please. So obviously, touch a little bit on these, but the new business models, or like the business models in general, is a way of generating impact. So you might be, as I said, from like the core of your product, there is sustainability embedded. So you might have a plastic-free, natural, like Sabrina was saying, it's vegan, is not like, there is so much sustainability already at the core of her product that's literally like embedded in her business model. That's what her product is about. Other people might not be able to do that, and they, I don't know, lawyers, but they can redirect their profits, right? They could say, from our profits yearly, we're going to actually support this or that cause and create positive change. And that cause can be whatever they choose. It could be a humanitarian, it could be environmental, right? And obviously, the third bit, if you're not going to, or both things, you can do all of this. But if you decide not to redirect profits, but actually embed a little bit more, not in your business model, but in your business, some impact, you can actually employ vulnerable groups. So we know of a lot of brands that would employ people with mental health issues, or people with neurodiverse groups that normally really struggle to get employed, or you would see people that trains and employs refugees, etc., etc. Those businesses are becoming more and more popular these days, and it's kind of embedded in the business model, but actually is part of their staff and the way they run the business, not how they make money, if that makes sense. So it's three ways in which we can think about how we can generate impact from scratch, or new impact. If you're already in a place where you're like, I don't really know where to extend this, etc., here are some ideas. Next, please. So Rachel, I have a question for you. Judith mentioned that you work with this mini market to help them become more sustainable. I would love to know a bit more about like what drove them and yourself to do this work, and what has been the impact and the results so far.
Well, I'll take a step back. So, I mean, I used to live full-time in Leytonstone. I now have a divided life. Because I come backwards and forwards from Wales, which is where my partner's based. But I lived in Leytonstone full time for 10 years, and as I was saying, during that time I was, really in a very hardcore kind of, well, not hardcore. I was an activist, and I was also just like, I wanted to, but I also really love Leytonstone. I love Waltham Forest. I love the borough, and I think I just really wanted to find a way to. do good stuff that basically made my life easier. So I wanted to, I wanted to shop more sustainably locally. And so it kind of was born from myself as being the end user of OurPledge, and then speaking to other people in the area who had the same kind of frustrations. So that was the original motivating factor. And then also I'd had this idea, I think I just wanted to pick up on something that you said, Noelia, about the power of business. Like, I think what I realized when I was talking to people often about the climate crisis was that it ultimately would quite often end up in an economic argument. And so I realized that I needed to be able to get my teeth into the economics of sustainability, and to sort of show that green business was good business and let it start speaking for itself. So I kind of was looking for a way to test that out. And I was a member of Transition Leytonstone, and they work with the mini market. And so I kind of knew Adriani and Ocken, who run the mini market, as was then, it was a small convenience, just very, a standard convenience store. And I knew that they were interested in doing something. They've done a couple of experiments with getting people to bring in the bottles that they'd purchased from the shop, and kind of collecting the bottles over a week that had been purchased from the shop, and just really realizing that there was a lot of plastic going out of the store. And so they were kind of up for it, I guess. They were like, yeah, we'll have a go, and they were keen to just see what could be achieved. So so the conversation just started from a lot of parallel curiosity in I think there's something here, and I think Leytonstone might be the place. And so that's how it started. And then in terms of impact, they've expanded. I think the shop is now 5 times bigger than it used to be, or something crazy. They moved to a bigger shop, and that shop was 3 times bigger than the old shop. And then they released the next door shop to that as well. I don't know if you know the mini market on Leytonstone High Road, but it's now two spaces, quite large spaces, that are dedicated to zero waste shopping and community. They have a kind of community space, and they have a garden. They have a library full of green books. I mean, it's really amazing. It kind of actually has become this thing that I was talking about earlier, which is a space of it's like a hub. It's like a community hub for green interests. So accessing the green pound, we had a hunch that people might be able, the demographic in Leytonstone was in a position to be able to pledge money, so that there was enough room for customers to be yeah, I'll pledge £60, which was the average that people pledged. They said, I pledge to spend £60 in the shop on sustainable products, and they kind of listed out which ones they would be interested to buy. And we did 3 campaigns with them over the years, and we raised about £41,000. So that just goes to show that's from 300 people. So yeah, OurPledge, anyone who pledged was known as a pledgend. So we had about 300 pledgeons, and those. So that's just actually that's not the full. That's not their whole customer base. That's a percentage of their customer base. So it just kind of proves that there is that kind of market opportunity there, that people will invest money in bringing these things to them. And then I don't know how to estimate how many plastic packages we've saved. They increase their product line all the time. So originally we worked out if people spent, if people bought 5 products, however many, we had a sum that kind of said if they had bought these things, the average amount of shopping that was done and the amount of items that used to be bought in plastic have now been replaced by non-plastic and sustainable goods. Then we kind of estimated originally that we'd saved about 250,000 plastic packages in a year, but it's way more than that now. And their sales went up, and the impact was really positive for them. So we're going to revisit it coming out of COVID, because, as I said, like, we don't know what behaviours are going to be like. But yeah, so does that answer your question, Aurelia?
All right, I was on mute, sorry.
Yeah,
no, great, thank you. I was very curious to know what was the impact and how it started, and it makes total sense. It's such a great example of how powerful a tool like OurPledge can be for the communities and for the local businesses. But it's such an incredible example. Like, who wouldn't like to increase their sales by 40% by like funding first, and then it's such a great example around. Thank you very much. I don't know if you had any questions for me.
Well, I did. So I was wondering, because I've talked about my journey to setting up OurPledge, but I actually don't know your, like, what was the like moment where you were like, this is gonna, I need to do this, I'm gonna do it, like, and where the kind of like the secure, well, whoever has security, but like, where was the moment you're like, this is going to work? Like, what market research you did, or
that's great. I love to share. So I think, as I said, I spent many years working for corporations in doing their marketing strategy, etc. And although I love that side, and I think I'm a good marketer, and that was like, oh, my skills are being used here in a good way, I just felt like I wanted those skills to be used for good. So I knew that I was going to do a social enterprise. I was in love with the idea of social enterprises. And when throughout my career, I always had these funky ideas. One of them was like, I'm going to create a ticketing system that competes with Eventbrite, but these tickets are going to donate something to charity every time someone say, like, super like complex stuff. But luckily I didn't go for that, because during the pandemic that would have been quite a thing. But I mean, God knows digital events are here, right? But basically that was like very early on. I'm talking about like 12 years ago. This ideas all came. There were a few others, but by the time I was actually out of my work visa and could do whatever I wanted work-wise, I actually took time as a marketing consultant and the consultancy for some charities and social enterprises and cooperatives. And I just wanted to learn from them and their needs as a business, and then how much they knew. Like, I wanted to help them reach more customers. I was like, this is what I want to do. And then after working with a few of them for a few months, I was like, okay, I do want to do this, but I want to do this at scale. And the idea of GoodF just came so naturally. It's like, I just want to help a bunch of brands get more customers. So obviously that was like literally one day, I'm like, I just need to create this platform. And I looked like all the brands that I knew at the moment. It was probably around 30 brands. And I was like, oh, great, my job is done. I've got all these brands here. And then I realized, by kind of doing the research into one and the other, and doing the research on the customer side, it was like, okay, it's just a lot more here. Like, there's a lot more people interested than I thought first. So all the reports and all the consumer research I did just pointed at that, and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. It's like, okay, there's a lot more opportunity here. And then there was this other side of things that was like, okay, and I thought there were like 30 brands that I could mention in the platform, and then realized there are thousands and thousands of brands doing amazing stuff. And I was like, okay, this is great. There is such a live marketplace here. So that was kind of the bold moment, and I still was like, okay, I'm going to just test these, maybe friends and family first, maybe a little bit of social media, just to see who kind of fishes, etc. I think the moment where I said this has legs and I'm going to do this was because I started, while like building this community of brands and inviting brands to list themselves, etc. I had already probably at that point around 250 brands on the platform. And this was May 2020, pandemic had just happened. I needed to hire an assistant to do very kind of very admin-y things. And first I went and said, hey, I want to hire a single mom. This must be really hard times for single mom to be at home with the kids, no education. Like, why? Like, how are they doing the job? Like, if they cannot, like with my partner, I have a kid, and with my partner, we took turns to do the kid. If I didn't have a partner, what do I do with my kid and then work? Like, so I was like, well, if there's any single mom that has time or doesn't have a job or wants like a flexible hours thing, I have this job. And loads of things came from that. And I was like, okay, I can use this community for this. I can actually not only help consumers, I can help this community in this way. And then May comes and George Floyd happens. And I just sit there for 2 days in shock, knowing that I needed to do something. And then I was like, the community. I sent an email to everyone and said, who are you? Are a Black founder. I want to do this thing. Let's get together. And I got more than 60 people, like, which is crazy. So obviously I had 250 brands or so. So I think from the people existing there were 20, but then they recommended other brands that they knew. And we got around 60 brands, all Black owned and sustainable, to be part of this amazing magic campaign that then was like picked up by Time Out, London on the Inside, Stylist magazine. Like everyone was talking about it, The Garden, Metro. And I was like, yes. So I was like, yes, that's my moment. I'm really going to do this. This has legs. And from then on, registered the business and went on that trajectory. So I suppose it wasn't like a bold moment. It was like an accumulation of different realizations, and like the journey started really, really early, actually more than 10 years ago, with little ideas. But I think, like coming to the idea of a platform in this way that aggregates those brands and send the traffic to them and all of this is still quite a new thing. And I think a lot of people kind of expect me to be a shop and they want to kind of buy through the platform, etc. And obviously it's an MVP, still very early stage in terms of the user experience. So I think like I need to really move it forward quicker and get there so it's kind of more established. But I'm so happy that even with a small amount of investment and small team and all of these, the impact that we've generated is amazing. Like I haven't paid myself a salary yet, but it's just this kind of I'm sold for this cause so badly that I really like, just I don't mind running it on the side. I don't mind doing 3 days a week on it, not paid, like I just kind of driving on it. And I'm just waiting for that moment where it clicks and it just kind of makes it all be worth it. Yeah, the answers.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fantastic. There's so much in there, actually. I'm wondering, I can't remember what the next slide is. I wanted to pick up on a couple of things there, because again, this goes back to, so integrity, right, is one of the core things that we're talking about this morning. And I think that actually sort of means like vulnerability, ultimately, like kind of that's like an ongoing quest, is to like work out what do I think about these things? How do I act well? What do I know? What do I not know? Who do I know? Who can I learn from? And I think kind of the expectation on oneself to kind of have to know everything and have to like be the perfect example is a really heavy and actually impossible and unnecessary burden to put on yourself. And it's like you talking then about like, okay, well, I'm going to reach out to the community. There's this incredible resource. Like we are all an incredible resource for each other. Like our missions are going to ultimately be the same, which is to kind of go beyond this period of time when we are really degrading the planet and natural resources, and get back into a place where we're actually regenerating the planet and making the world a better place to be. And that sustainability isn't really a thing, because that's just what everything is. It's like, of course, why would we ever create products that damage the planet or poison our seas or our bodies or whatever, just hopefully in the future that those things won't even be part of the conversation, but they are now. So I think being super up for conversation and like honesty about like where you're at and what you're trying to do. And again, like in all of the sessions we've done so far in talking about like, let's say, your carbon footprint or where you're making carbon reductions or whatever work you're doing, to be really honest, you can't do it all. to just be honest about the things that you are doing or the things that you're trying to do. And so I think, yeah, we'll come back to that a bit more in a minute, but I think that's just a really, really important part of what you said, is about like you're creating a community, which is an amazing resource for each other.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so I'll dig into the next couple of slides, because I think this will come back to this conversation anyway. But I did want to just share some research that we did well, it was in Waltham Forest. It was a little bit in Cardiff and a little bit in Berkshire, because we had some kind of contacts in those spaces that were working with us to do some research, and we interviewed we interviewed 639 people. This were customers who were using a convenience store, a cafe, a vegan restaurant, and a gym. And across those sectors, the average, there was an average of 72% of respondents who said they would be more likely to shop or use the services at one of these spaces if they stocked more sustainable products. So sustainability, again, on this kind of smaller, and the majority of these customers were in Waltham Forest, just to say, again, like digging into our community, there is definitely an interest and a will to shop more sustainably. And certainly, actually, this I didn't include here was a pet shop as well. Certainly these aren't necessarily, the gym, the pet shop, the cafe weren't places that are really associated with sustainability at all. So these are like everyday consumers. They are people who just shop, work out, pay, buy food for their pets. What was interesting was that in this area, and I think this is definitely something that's quite special about Waltham Forest, there definitely is a real community, like shop local, supportive local feel. But in terms of the things we asked about that were of that would have an impact on purchasing decisions, was very much around supporting local. So the top driver was like supporting local. Everyone wanted to support local. The second driver was convenience. People really wanted to have things be easy for them. And the third was sustainability. So sustainability is in the top three, but it's not the top one. And then actually reviews and price were the same. They reviews weren't more than price. It just was like, they just had the same rating. So people kind of said, yeah, if it was good reviews, I might shop there. If it was the price, yeah, might make a difference, but not really. So so that's interesting in terms of some research that's certainly pertinent to Waltham Forest. Okay, so again, so we track we haven't, like with GoodF, we're an MVP as well. So we haven't done a huge amount of campaigns. We've done 3 with the mini market. We've actually done one around sustainable travel, and we've done one in a pet shop. Excuse me, that's not. We've done one in a cafe. So we've been, and because it's a relatively small group of people that we've worked with, the people who have pledged have been really open. We've done interviews with users, and we've kind of really spoken to people on the ground about like what made you pledge, what kept you on the journey, what else would you like to do. So we've had some really nice feedback on that side of things, and some of the commonalities that we found is that people, it's all human, right? So it's very much based in like the sort of human experience that we're all in, and people. They like other people. They like the individuals behind the brands. They like to see who they are supporting. So the more that the people who we were running campaigns with were present, the easier it was for somebody to invest in them, because they knew who they were investing in as well as what. I think also, we as humans do respond to vulnerability in the face of challenge. So when people came forward and said, "Oh, I'm a bit stuck. We don't know what we don't know what to do here," there was always a huge swell of support from people who were touched by that vulnerability. Like, it can feel so scary to say, "I don't know," but actually when that happened within the context of these campaigns and within the context of what we're doing, when we say, "Look, we're not really sure, can you you know, can you give us your feedback or something? People were willing to do that. And, you know, we do live in a weird world of social media and people feeling able to say things online that maybe they wouldn't say elsewhere. But for the most part, the overwhelming response was, you know, if you are stuck, people want to help you. And that really came through in the pandemic as well, you know, like mutual aid groups and sort of local support was just huge. The other thing is that customers are also really keen to celebrate you when you're doing well. So when you have a success, people want to like share in that with you. And again, you know, we've seen from our campaigns that when a campaign's successful, people who've pledged to that campaign kind of feel like it's their success. Like, you know, oh, we did this, we did it, look, you know what we brought, look what we did. So I think that's something I've spoken about with Adrienne at the mini market, how people would say, oh, how are things in our shop? So it kind of gives people a sense of ownership and a sense of like investment and participation in something. And like I said, you know, customers also, once you start the conversation, then people are going to come to you with their ideas. So they might end up saying, well, you know, I noticed this, or you could do this, or what about this idea? So you do open the door for feedback, but that's all usually in the best spirit, and you know, you can have that kind of conversation about the ongoing improvements that you're making. So and I don't know, by being honest about it right from the get-go, then you can just have these conversations at that bedrock level of like, well, look, we're doing what we can, we're working within these limits. You know, like you lease a building, well, you can't just decide what you're going to do with that building. You have a landlord, you know. So there are loads of parameters and restrictions that we have to work within. So people are sympathetic to that if you talk about it openly. So, and again, you know, it's all a journey. You know, none of us are at the end of the journey. So, and again, like thinking about things from a human perspective, human beings really love stories. Like Neri said, we love, were you just saying, oh no, it was in a different session. Sorry, I'm getting confused between my webinars. But I was talking about like your heroes, your hero customers, and like the hero brand business owners, like having these characters that you can kind of follow their journey is really powerful for people. So, you know, using yourself or your staff as characters in your journey, I think is really powerful, and kind of bedding that in truth, and then as you kind of like gain credentials and make some achievements, then people kind of come on board and they want to celebrate and share in your success, and then they tell other people. You know, like again with campaigns, one of the things that we saw was how quickly the word spread about like, oh, the mini market are trying to do this, and like, oh, they need people to support them because it's a campaign, and you know, people were coming and saying, I've shared it with my mum's group, I've shared it with you know, my yoga class, I've shared it with you know, my I've shared it with my friends from the cafe. So it definitely kind of helps to build momentum if you're building a story and kind of sharing little updates along the way. So that kind of brings in these sort of inactivists who, in a way, you're giving them a way to be active, to do something very easy and good by effectively spending their money. So, you know, my partner and I definitely have like a little dopamine hit where we're like, oh, I bought a, you know, sustainable, you know, scrubber for the sink. You know, you're like, hey, look at us, we're good. So if people are going to spend their money, which they are, you know, bring them into your journey and make them feel good about investing in your products.
So no, I was going to just say, yeah, I totally agree with Rachel on this, and I think like the way to communicate to, and I can't stress this enough, like the problem with greenwashing is not that they aren't doing everything, is that they're saying they're doing things that they're not doing. No one can come back to you and your brand and say, I can't believe you are calling yourself a sustainable brand and you're not vegan. If your effort is somewhere else, that is absolutely valid. So you have to choose your battle. Like, being everything is very hard to attain. And I think very little people, let alone brands, can achieve that, let alone small brands and starting brands. So all of us are in this position where we actually need to understand, what is it that we want to be good at? Is it plastic free? Is it vegan? Is it social impact? Is it the way that you manage your employees? Is it your governance? Is it your way of showing up for certain movements? You choose that battle and then you focus on that, and you need to tell very clearly to your customers, you're doing this job and that job has value, and that's why you claim that you have positive impact. That doesn't mean that you are also everything else. I wanted to share an example of a client of GoodF. Initially, he was one of the brands that I approached because it was Black owned and sustainable. They are a social impact brand that promotes play with diversity. So they do this kind of, what is it? The name escapes me right now. Well, games in general for kids that include diverse characters, but also has like maps of all the places in the world. Like, just kids don't get to see, especially like if you live in a developed country and stuff, they just don't get to like know like the geography of South America or Africa. Like, it's something so like, you don't need that. You just need Europe and the US. You know, like, it's just so like what you see everywhere is so driven by the countries that are driving the conversations everywhere. So these people are trying to like bring diversity and like an open mind into kids. And for me, that's such a great mission. I approached them and I said, why don't you list yourself? And the owner, the founder, told me, actually, our products are made in China, so I don't think we belong to be there. And it shocked me. I was like, what did you mean? Like, if you want, I can add a note saying this product could improve these. They're made in China, but like the values that you are fighting for, your mission is so clearly important. Like, I wouldn't for a minute hesitate to buy you because you're made in China. You're fighting one fight. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm working for this. I actually want to make it locally. Just at the moment, I just cannot make those numbers work. And I was like, fantastic, because everyone else who is doing toys probably are making them in China too, and you have chosen to do the right thing in a cultural and social way, right? So yeah, I think choosing your battles is such an important thing, and then being very transparent about that, and being very transparent about what you think you're not doing yet, especially because people will have that questions like, okay, let's say some of your, I don't know, beauty products were vegan and very natural and like eco-friendly, but some of them actually needed to be wrapped in plastic or you know, like packed in plastic containers. Plastic is, at the end of the day, a very useful material. It's very versatile. It's durable. It's light. It's so good actually for many things that would last. Plastic is a very good and important material. And I mean, why would that make you, like everything else you're doing, why would that kind of erase it or delete it? Like, all you need to do is, this is, let's say you save water, this is how much water we save, this is how much pollution we are not producing, and this is our journey into these. Plastic is still an issue that we're going to work on in 2024. That is absolutely fine. You're showing your transparency and vulnerability there. And as long as the consumers know that, you're absolutely entitled to own that sustainability that you are driving. So, and finally, to close on that, obviously, many of you will probably know this. Sorry, that was what I was talking about. I was like, I wonder where that slide is. Yes, that was the one I was talking about. Those are the ones that I recommend users in terms of like identifying brands that how do you identify a brand that is doing specific claims? You don't go in I'm just sustainable. You do, this is how much water I save. These are the ingredients I use. This is how I support this vulnerable group in society. This is how many meals I gave to this particular group. If you're doing your job, your stats. Just plaster them everywhere. Just tell them that. Don't be generic. Go to the point. Certifications help, and choosing your battle, as I was just talking. And then I have 4 as packaging here because it's in a lot of research I've read. Is one of the kind of easier things for people to choose. So if you are in the position to change your packaging to something more eco-friendly, people in any shop might just go like, oh, okay, this one is wrapped in plastic, this one is not, I'm going to grab the plastic free. They already feel good about it. It's like that like hit of, oh, I'm such a good person, look at me buying the non-plastic one. So if you can do that, it's kind of the first phase. People don't need to know your brand. You just have an advantage position. It's such an easy step. Easy step for the consumer to find you, not an easy step, I know, for a lot of us, maybe producing or creating products. So sorry, if you can go back for a bit to that other slide. Yeah, perfect. So obviously, most of you might be aware of this. I think I'm going to admit Sabrina again. I'm pro, if you want a certification, great. Otherwise, just speak clearly and people should believe you or would believe you. But if you think you can get one of the certifications, I think it helps a lot because people might not trust everyone because there's greenwashing, etc. And it's highly dependent on what you do. So there is no one blanket fits all. There is also not such thing as I'm now sustainable and that's it. Like you can get certified, but you will have to constantly demonstrate that. And you will have to, and that's the right thing. Like that's a positive thing. Sustainability is a journey, is not a stamp. So if you want to go for one of these, it depends on what you do. It depends on your product. There are more generics. You can be B Corp certified, almost doing anything in this world. You can have a living wage employer badge, doing whatever you want in this world. But if you can be a social enterprise, certified your social enterprise UK, whatever you do in this world, as long as your articles of association reflect a social enterprise kind of structure, then you have products and fair trade is more like for food stuff or for things that need mostly farming and that gets to do trade with labor internationally mainly. But then you have cruelty-free, and then you have so many. I listed ones, and there are around 200 certifications. Smaller, bigger, European, American, global, you name it. It's a lot. Honestly, invest time in this if you see a real benefit for yourself and your brand, and go for the ones that are very relevant for your market. So it's a very, very relevant market specific. Yeah, I think that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will just add actually, because I really concur with what you said, that like going for a certification can be the right thing, but also if you are able to just pick the parts of your business that you are working on and measure those, then that can be, if you can be specific about what you are measuring. And again, we talked about this in the carbon session, but if you are reducing your emissions, for example, if you have a benchmark year, you publish those emissions, and then you reflect on that a year later to say we've reduced our emissions by this amount, and you can evidence that can be as good as a certification, because it's very, very specific to you and to your story and what you're doing. And again, you then become a kind of exemplar for other organizations trying to do the same thing, so they can and if you're open and you're sharing, then people will feel that they can take an example from you, take a lead from you. And I think that's really important and powerful, going back to what we were saying earlier. So okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Although actually, before I do that, I will just put up the final slide so that if you want to take our contact details to speak with us afterwards, if you have any questions, this is Noelia's information, and actually we can circulate this presentation. Yeah, exactly. So, and then this is me. But yeah, so I will share that afterwards. But please do feel free to contact us with any questions or follow-ups. So yeah, so we had a couple of questions to talk through in breakout rooms, but as there's only so few of us, we could.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was wondering if, well, first of all, if people had any questions or comments at this point, anything that people wanted to talk about, or let's open the mic, and then we can just do the questions and also have an open discussion.
Hey, morning everyone. Thanks for that presentation. That was really insightful and quite useful. So I kind of got a question for yourself, Noella. When you first started up, how did you go about with, like, I suppose, finding people to sort of essentially help or support you financially in like your early stages? And I suppose that's the same sort of question to you, Rachel, as well. I suppose with like lots of because I suppose you have a great idea and stuff and you want to do something, but there is that point where you necessarily have to reduce your working hours in order to sort of give time and effort in order for your baby to grow. But then you also need some financial support for that. So how did you guys go about sort of tackling that hurdle? Or are you still tackling that hurdle?
Very much. Yeah. I can start. I think it's funny because Rachel and I have quite different journeys, I suppose. Well, I don't know how different, but the answer to the last bit is definitely still in that hurdle. I started saying I'm going to cover myself with, luckily I had some savings, and luckily and also stupidly, I trusted so much that things were going to work quite quickly, and went all in and did it thinking I'm going to just quickly ramp this up and then get private funding. So my ideal scenario was, let me do 3 or 4 months of really hard work and then go and get angels to put money into this. And then realize, well, angels might not be what I want. I just don't know if I want shareholders that tell me what direction to take. I don't think the angels are getting it yet. It took me a while to understand how that world works as well. So the funding so far that I've had is grants. Grants can be a great resource. They take time to apply for, and you do have to like put a lot of effort into like knowing what they want to hear, the grantee. But it's probably the easiest way and the simplest way to get your idea out of the ground. I can suggest a few things. So local grants, Waltham Forest, etc. had some. I got some, and Rachel will talk about her experience. There is trust and foundations out there that might, in some cases, give you money for a commercial idea. What I found particularly is being a social enterprise, trying to get angels was really difficult because they were like, social enterprise? No, I'm not going to put money into that because I want my money back. Like it's an investor. And then on the grant side, I'm a limited company. So the grants are like, no, we just give this to charity and community organizations. So I was too hippie for the angels, too commercial for the grants, literally in a middle limbo that was not helpful. So depending on the structure and the legal structure of your company, you might be better for one or the other. What I was going to say, so trust and foundations, there are a couple I can mention that do give money to commercial ideas. One is Paul Hamlin Foundation. They do small grants just to get you off the ground. So if you're able to just prove that that idea has impact, and then Innovate UK. I mean, I wish, there are certain things that Innovate UK would ask you for. It's a whole process. It's a lot of work, but they can give you money enough to get your idea off the ground properly. So I would go for that. I'd say there are now more than ever, in your case specifically, a lot of funds and ideas for minority, ethnic, and Black founders. So do look into that. I'm happy to share some stuff if you share your email with me, because the names don't come to me at the moment. But some of them might give you support that is not monetary. I know that what we need is the money. I cannot say enough. Every time people ask me, do you want part of this accelerator? It's like, do you give money? Because I cannot do a million accelerators and just learn things and not have hands to do it. Like, I just can't. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So when I don't know we're that different, because I also I when I was working, I ended up working for a visual effects company because the job I quit was quite a good job. It was a solid job. So I knew I was going to quit. So I saved up some money for, I can't remember, over the course of a year, basically knowing that I was going to take time off to launch OurPledge. So that was really lucky. And then I did do an accelerator, which did give me money. So they gave me £2,000, which wasn't very much, but it was enough to get the MVP of the website off the ground. So this is like, God, 3 years ago now. But yeah, so that was really helpful. So between my savings and the accelerator, I was able to kind of sustain myself to work on the project, to work on OurPledge. Like, it wasn't actually full-time because I was working as a consultant until last summer. So until July 2021, I had a part-time job still working in film. So I was doing that and doing OurPledge at the same time. But then I managed to get sponsorship. So the first project that I did was actually sponsored by a BASA, who are like the waste, they managed waste in Waltham Forest. So I was doing a plastic reduction. Oh, he's gone. Because Emmanuel's just dropped off, I think.
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, he looked like he was looking at something that was concerning him. So
he's back.
Here we go. Hello. I don't know if you could hear me.
My internet literally just cut out.
Yeah. Where did you?
Went there. The last thing I heard was £2,000 website.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So then once I'd got the website up and running and we did the pilot, so I kind of really bootstrapped. So you and I were talking about the lean startup, Emmanuel, which is was one of my models at that time. Was like, okay, I'm just going to do the version that I can with the resources that I have. That got me into a position where I managed to get some sponsorship from a BASA, who were the waste management people for Waltham Forest. So they gave me some money. So it was like little by little. And then the campaigns, because we raised quite a lot of money for the mini market through campaigns, we charge a commission. So then we had income, and then we were charging small amounts of money for like market research. And so I'm really interested in like alternative economic models as well. So doing work for people and then saying, pay me when this. So like similar to OurPledge, is like, rather than people paying up front and then the stock coming in, I did a couple of things where I was like, I'll do this for a cost price, and then if it has a positive effect, you can pay a bit extra later on.
Okay.
So actually, I think we only did that for one client, but that meant that we could do the work, they could pay us, and then it wasn't too stressful, and it had good effects. So so then once we had campaigns running, we were getting some income from the campaigns, and then we did get a grant from Waltham Forest. So Waltham Forest Council has been incredibly supportive through the pandemic. We had a business recovery and growth grant from them, which was at the moment when I was really needed it. Like, I didn't know how to. We weren't earning enough for us to have kept going at that point. I don't know. It's quite stressful because it was right in the middle of the pandemic. So all the campaigns that we had lined up were on hold because they were like, we'd love to do this sustainability thing, but we actually need to we need to make ourselves COVID safe. So so that was that. And then now we kind of diversified what our offerings are. So we have several different income streams. So that grant from Waltham Forest kind of gave us the momentum to go and find new clients and get leads. And so now we're working with offering training like this. We're going to be running an expo in June, which will hopefully generate some income. We have campaigns. We have what else? That's all I can think of right now. Yes, we also do market research and like customer trend analysis. So there's a little bit of each of those things. So yes, we have a very short runway. It's not like we're not like kicking back and smoking cigars.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that too. Like very early on, we started generating revenue. So the business is for itself, and then anything else, like my time, hasn't been like constantly paid. But whatever extra money just helps to develop new things, etc. But it's been constantly just trying to develop its own sustainability. And obviously the other part is crowdfunding, right? Like if your business already has enough of a clientele or customer base, you might be able to crowdfund for the next new thing that they want, just like OurPledge helps the shops, right?
Yeah,
I hope that
100%.
helps a bit.
Yeah, I will also say we did look at investment similarly to Noelia. We didn't go for it. We got SEIS approved and everything, but we just weren't sure. But one thing I do have to say that's blowing my mind at the moment is that there's so much interest in sustainability. And so I think when you're in a world, like I definitely was like, oh, everyone's doing sustainability businesses now. Like, oh, and they're not at all. Like we're still in the minority, like there's a USP to doing what we're doing that people are really keen to find out about. So I think we're definitely in the right space at the right time. And I know that from having walked away from things in the past where I was like, oh, like I remember, really early on I worked in like filmed theatre and I was like, oh, that's done now. And then like 5 years later, everyone's like, have you heard about NT Live? I was like, oh, yeah, knew about that ages ago. So I think just, if you can stick with it and survive and grow your business, there's like more and more and more appetite. And actually, I really, really see it in Waltham Forest. So I must give a shout out to the Green Business Network. The council has just launched this Green Business Network. It's like a monthly networking event for businesses that want to be sustainable. The next one is on the 7th of April. I will make sure that I send everyone a link to sign up for it. It was lovely, the last one that that happened. I was kind of like completely unprepared for it. I'd signed up for it and was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go pop along, and didn't really think about it. And it was very, very good. So I'll make sure that that's shared with you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank both of you. Thank you for that.
Pleasure. Oh, great. Thank you, Noe. Noe's put a couple of links in.
Yeah, I'm sharing some links because typical. I've heard some initiatives lately, and then the name doesn't come to me right now. So it was probably in a newsletter somewhere. They will come back to me, but those are two that kind of will help. And I'm going to share a third resource there. It's a place where you could always go back to search for funding for initiatives. But as I said, a lot of it might be for nonprofits. So.
Yeah. We are actually running a session next Friday on grant writing and raising finance for sustainable brands or for sustainable business. So it's actually a session about how you tell your story within the context of a grant application or a pitch deck. So again, the manual that's probably going to be relevant for you. But yeah, so I think it's kind of useful. So basically, the grant that we got last summer through Waltham Forest, we worked on an Innovate UK grant. We didn't get it, but we got quite good marks, and we had worked on that with Sam, who is running our session on Friday. She helped us with Innovate UK. She then helped us write the Waltham Forest, or that exercise went into the grant application that we wrote for Waltham Forest, and we won that grant. So she's won grants for herself, for other businesses. She's got investment. She has worked as a commissioner. So she's been on all sides of the coin. She knows exactly what everyone's looking for. So definitely come along to that. I think that will be helpful. And so actually I'll share these links with her in that session as well. No idea if that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Make sure we put this out there. And actually we will have Well, I'm not sure. I've asked a speaker from Bethnal Green Ventures to come, but they haven't confirmed. I've got two pending kind of hot seat speakers that I said, come for 15 minutes and tell us.
Yeah.
And the other person is from London, which is the London grant for circular economy initiatives.
Yeah, actually, now that you mentioned Bethnal Green Ventures, they are a great source, but I suppose they work very well when your idea is very early on.
Yeah.
But they would actually be private investors in your idea while you develop it and get some equity for it. After you've developed your idea quite a bit and actually have some income, it might not be a good deal. They just take quite a lot of, not quite a lot, but they take a substantial amount of equity for what they help you, which at the beginning sounds great, but then later on it might not be a great deal. The other people that I will share right now in there is Unlimited, and they have small, medium, and bigger grants to get you commercial ideas out off the ground too. Definitely recommend them. Cool. Anyone had any other ideas? Or comments?
Just to say, it was actually really nice to hear both of your journeys and sort of how you started setting up the business and then went about funding as well, because I think it's quite hard to kind of get insight on that. So it's really nice to hear more about that.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you. Yeah. No worries.
Does anyone want to share a little bit of their journey and what they're doing, how they're doing it? Nope.
I don't mind going.
Go on then.
So I guess maybe I had a bit of a similar story in a way to you both. I was working full time and started setting up the brand sort of actually just a little bit before I started working for the company I was at last, and then kind of working on it whilst I was doing that. And then the pandemic, when the pandemic came along, it wasn't a lockdown brand for me. It was just a coincidence that it was that sort of timing, that everything was about to get off the ground. And so because I'd been working, I'd saved a little bit of funding. It turned out it wasn't anywhere near what I needed. So I actually applied for a startup loan. I didn't go down the route of crowdfunding or grants. Wish I had, because it seemed like a really good option. But I think I just didn't really know enough about it at the time. And tried to just borrow as little as possible, which also probably wasn't the best thing to have done either, because it didn't leave me any room for marketing and things like that after the product was made. So I did also apply for some grants last year, and there was actually a lot out there. I was really surprised, and especially from Waltham Forest Council and Hackney Council as well. So I got one under the growth scheme for the borough, which was really good. And then also applied for one through Westminster Council. Sorry, I'm going to have to cut it short because my courier is...
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, Waltham Forest has been very supportive, actually, I have to say.
Yeah, I wish it was more like a constant thing. It felt like it was more like a one-off.
I do, yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if they had like 2 yearly intakes of applications for this kind of grants, like there are new entrepreneurs all the time, right?
Yeah. Well,
I
think that's what. No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut in, but I just got excited because I feel like that's what this Elevate program has shown. Like, we focused on 0 to 3 year old businesses. Like, there are so many, particularly now coming out of the pandemic. It's like this just 3 month program that we've co-delivered has been it's like, oh, you just dipped a toe in, and like, so I think things like the Green Business Network as an initiative is going to be really helpful to kind of like keep some sense of momentum going around these conversations, and like at least sharing. I mean, the session that we did for the Green Business Network, we talked about funding. Where do we get funding from? How do we support people to get funding? So, sorry, Harriet, carry on.
Sorry, one of the perks of being a small business is that the big couriers never actually come and pick up from you. Yeah, and so then I also applied for an initiative through Westminster Council, which was all about getting people back onto the high street and supporting small independent businesses and that were sustainable. So I did a pop-up last year, just before Christmas, actually for 4 months it ended up being, because they extended it because it had such positive feedback on Regent Street, which was quite amazing to be there as like a year-old brand at the time. And there was a little bit of support funding as well, which didn't go very far, but it went a little way. So yeah, but I mean, I agree that I think half of the battle, obviously it always depends on what kind of business you have, but especially product, or, you know, if you're a very web-based business and you really need to drive the traffic there as well, funding is always the big mountain to climb, I think. And especially when you start, you just constantly need funding, because you're, you know, as much as you bring in, it goes back out straight away for further investment in the business. And you do sort of wonder what point you might actually be able to pay yourself. So you don't have to do all the freelance and consulting. But
Yep, similar journey. Thank you for sharing your experience, Harriet.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sabrina, you've been quiet, and that is fine. But if you wanted to share something, I just wanted to open the mic for you specifically. She might be on and off. Okay. Well, yeah, near the end. So unless anyone...
On the train. No worries.
You get it. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for attending from the train.
Yeah. Literally on the journey.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead now.
No, I was just going to say, obviously, my email was there, and I think, yeah, Harry, you do have it by hand and first hand. But yeah, whoever wanted to get in touch and have a little chat about anything, yeah, I'm here, and thank you, Rachel, for inviting me today.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And yeah, we will be doing more, so watch this space as well, everyone, and we will speak to you all soon. There'll be a follow-up. Oh, I need to actually do some admin, which I don't have the piece of papers on standby for, but just to say that this webinar is part of the Elevate program. There are still some webinars left. We are running webinars all focusing on the topic of sustainability in the borough and running a sustainable business. So as I said, next Friday we have a session on grant writing and raising finance. All of the sessions that are within the program are being filmed and will be uploaded online to a YouTube channel that you will have access to. So if you've missed anything, you can catch up. And yeah, it's not just about sustainability, it's about topics, everything from sales and selling strategies, pricing, how do you set your prices, social media, marketing, setting up a company, legal structures and things like that. So there's a whole wealth of content that will be available. And as I say, some webinars are still happening. We are also offering free business one-to-ones. So if anyone would like to have a 90-minute session with a business advisor in the borough, then please do check out wfconnected.org/elevate, and you can find the advisor network there. And and we will be hoping to do a couple of events in real life in May for the cohort, so everyone can meet each other in person. We are, as I said, supported by Waltham Forest Council. We're also supported by the BIPC in Leytonstone. So I don't know if you know the BIPC Centre in the library in Leytonstone, but that's a fantastic resource. They also have webinars happening. And I also wanted to mention Enterprise Enfield, who have a free digital skills programme if anyone wants to get some insight and support on digitising your business, automating your business. That resource is also there. I think that's most of the things I needed to say. We will be sending a feedback form. If you're able to fill it out, that would be so gratefully received. It helps us feedback to the council and say what we're doing and whether it's been any good. So fingers crossed it's been useful. And through Eventbrite we're now in touch, so we will follow up with relevant information about events that are coming up. So I think that's all of the things I needed to say. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been really nice to meet you and hear all your stories, and we will see you again soon.